Craziness in the third round of the Open Championship. Have you ever seen something like this in your life? Rory McIlroy picking up what he thought maybe would have been his ball, but it wasn't. It was a ball underneath his on the 11th hole. He made bogey. He made a run, but it doesn't matter because Scotty Scheffler started out ho-hum and then went crazy with an eagle, and it was, well, basically over from there. Scheffler has a massive lead. It's 4 shots over Haotong Li. We're not going to talk about can Scotty Scheffler blow this because we're not insane. But we can make the folks some money. We can do some fun things on a Sunday at the Open.
Yeah, minus 750 is an unbelievably steep price, but this guy has been, barely blinking this week. And I know that my former colleague Justin Ray is already quick to the trigger of he's such a front runner. Of the last 9 times he's had a 54-hole lead, he's left with a trophy a day later. So similar to the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, I fully expect Scheffler to win the Open. Maybe it could get interesting. I would be interested to see if we could have a prop on, does anyone else share the lead with him at any point during the final round, which we did see happen at Quail Hollow, even though Scheffler distanced himself from the pack. But listen, this has felt like Scotty Scheffler's tournament from about the 27th, 28th hole on. We came in with a really, short price. He was around minus 200 still with more than half the tournament to go. And now after that eagle on 8 today, it really felt like kind of game over.
Yeah.
Second on tour, or second this week in strokes gained approach, first in strokes gained putting. I don't know what you're supposed to do to try and beat that on anyone, against anyone, let alone if you're trying to take down the world number 1 and he has that combination going.
So there is fun to be had. We're going to talk top 5s. We're going to talk winner without Scotty Scheffler. We might talk some more nationality props. Let's start with winner without Scotty Scheffler. To me, it was, was one of 2 things with Matt Fitzpatrick. He was either going to have the moment be too big for him and go back to the last couple of years of regression, or he was going to be that superstar player he was a couple of years ago. I think the fact that he basically feels like he's out of it makes me kind of like him tomorrow in a without Scheffler market. Rory's going to be there. He's a short price for a reason. He's only a couple of back of Fitzpatrick. But I think Fitzpatrick, for as bad as he played today, salvaged an even par round. And if Rory doesn't go lights out tomorrow, Tyrrell Hatton, I don't know how I feel about him putting 4 rounds together. I kind of like Matt Fitzpatrick to get second place tomorrow at plus 350.
I mean, it was a roller coaster round from the jump for Matt Fitz, my pre-tournament guy, missing a 4-foot putt on the first hole, doing the cross-handed chip in for eagle on number 2. And he went in both directions from there and shooting that 71 where, it seemed like, as you said, around 8, 9, and 10, he might be able to stand toe-to-toe with Scheffler. And then the driver started to get away from him, made a few bogeys down the stretch. Listen, looking at these odds, we're clearly shading, or the odds makers are, towards Rory McIlroy. The hometown guy had such a spirited run today, even though he did the double ball trick on 11, then he eagles 12. But I'm looking at Hatton, honestly. I mean, he jarred that one eagle from the fairway on a par 5, and that certainly helps the cause. But plus 700 against some of these guys that are sitting there at 330, 350, I don't have a ton of faith in Haotong Li at plus 400, given that he's going to be solo second, and we'll have an appointment in that final group alongside Scotty Scheffler. But Hatton was honestly pretty surprising and impressive at the U.S. Open at Oakmont. He managed himself well. I know we talk all the time about, how is he going to be able to handle his temperament on these sort of tournaments and on these sort of layouts. And, these last 2, he's done pretty well. So I really like getting a much juicier price on Hatton and kind of banking on him going 66, 67, even though I don't think he has enough in the tank to go catch Scotty Scheffler for the Claret Jug.
Yeah, he probably would be my 1B. And we've been talking about him on this video for 3 straight days now. And the fact that he may have figured out this temperament of getting upset in the moment and forgetting about it after the fact, and he truly does. In the past, you didn't really see that. You saw the blow up. You saw his score blow up. We've had 3 straight days of fiery Tyrrell. Hatton gets back in the moment and stays in the mix. This guy is pummeling driver. That's massive this week. He's making the putts that he needs to. 7-1, you're right, it's pretty good. Harris English, I want to talk about him just because a 12-1 is crazy for somebody who's sitting there just 2 shots back of Lee, 1 back of Fitzpatrick. He's tied with Hatton and with McIlroy. He's very unassuming. 12-1, you staying away from that?
I mean, I get where you're coming from. I wonder about the emotional impact of that short miss on 18. I'm looking at the board here. I'm trying to figure out. I think if he would have made that putt,
Mm-hmm.
he would have been in the next to last group with Fitzpatrick.
Fitz,
He'd have
yeah,
gotten a 9,
yeah.
and all of a sudden he's in that second to last group. That number certainly would have been much shorter, maybe cut in half if he makes that putt on 18. So, how important is one single stroke? Always those cliches about, a birdie on the 18th makes dinner taste so much better,
Mhm.
and all that stuff. Harris English is someone who is very steady, has been in the mix or at least on leaderboards at a couple other major championships before. So there is something to be said for the miss on 18, and that, in the 54th hole hurt his chances of staying in the mix and staying that much closer to Scheffler, but it may have boosted his value in this without Scheffler market, knowing that it's
Mhm.
easy for one shot to come here or there in the final round of a major, especially at Royal Portrush.
Yeah, and we saw the flux of scores going up and down all day on Saturday. It could happen again on Sunday. It could be somebody not on this list who's the winner without Scheffler. All five of these players are going to be short odds for a top five because of their placement. Let's go a little further down the pack. For a top five, what's a good value to you? The next five, so to speak: Robert McIntyre, Xander Schauffele, Ludwig Oberg, Russell Henley, who had the low round of the day, I believe, right? I think with his 65, and Brian
Yeah.
Harman as well, who fell off the face of the earth after the first hole and kind of came back a little bit. What do you think about this board, or somebody else? A good pick for a top five.
No, I mean, I think, as you said, Harman is intriguing to me in terms of regressing to the mean. He was really in such great position. Everyone was talking about, what is Brian Harman, the Open Championship whisperer, having won here 2 years ago at Royal Liverpool and won this event. Now, all of a sudden, he was leading for a couple hours there on Friday, faded back in a big way today for 2 over 73. So now he's sitting there at T9 at 6 under, whereas the top 8 cutoff right now is at 8 under. That's too short of a price for me on Xander Schauffele, but I do think that Harman is intriguing. And then the other one that caught my eye is Ludwig Oberg, who was starting to kind of figure it out. There have been a lot of questions about the Swede, especially on and around the greens, and he's been pretty solid through 54 holes, a 368 today. He's going to need something low. We've seen that a couple times from him at some of the signature events. I think back to, I think it was the Truist where he really put one up on Sunday. So you're going to need that 65 or 66. I don't anticipate, I haven't checked the forecast in the last 12 minutes or so, but I don't think we're going to get any crazy weather in terms of wind and rain. It's been relatively calm, especially during the third round on Saturday. So I think in order to get to that top five for some of these guys, you're going to have to go low. You got to shoot for some of those flag sticks early on, maybe start birdie eagle or at least birdie on 1 and 2, because it's not one where the weather's going to kick up like it did in 2019. Shane Lowry went out and basically shot even par, 1 over, and ended up winning in a walkaway. This is one where you're going to have to go out and put up some circles on the scoreboard pretty quick.
Yeah, I think the fact that Oberg is staying in it after 3 rounds tells you maybe his game is back to the consistency that we all assumed he had, which he hasn't had this year. Russell Henley, I'm worried about, a fallback. Usually when a player has such a great round on the round of the day, how does the next day go? So I'm not convinced that the next day is going to be good enough for him, because he still has to make up a little bit of ground on some of these very good players who are ahead of him is the problem. Robert McIntyre, to me, it's a short odd. It's the second shortest odd here. I just think this the consistency he's playing with. To me, even though it's not the best money on the board here, I think he's, outside of Schauffele, maybe the safest bet for a top five, just because we've known what we're getting from him throughout the entire week. He's been so steady. There's been nothing about his game that makes you feel like he's going to fall apart. To me, he's the solid, safe bet for a top five here. It's still almost 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really good for me, especially on and around the greens with the short game. The iron game has not quite been where I think he expected. 75th right now in strokes gained approach for the week, and so that's middle of the ground even when you factor in the guys that had missed the cut already. So that's one where that's an area that definitely would have to sharpen up if he's going to go out and put up that score in the mid 60s. But listen, we've seen him kind of become a little bit of a big game hunter. You think back to last year when he won the Scottish Open. You think back to last month when he nearly nipped the U.S. Open at Oakmont before J.J. Spawn went and got the trophy. So there's a lot to like about Bobby Mack. I know we talked about him on yesterday's show as well. So this is not necessarily a fade of him, but I just think that I need a little bit more sharpness out of the approach game for me to think that he's going to put on a run tomorrow.
And Oberg certainly has the game to make that worth your money too at plus 750. Okay, before we go, if you want to do something fun tomorrow, you want to do basically a head-to-head bet. It's technically not a head-to-head bet, but it's a three-man market officially. The top Danish player this week. And it's fun because Nikolai Højgaard and Rasmus Højgaard, the brothers, the twins, are basically neck and neck. They're what? They're 6 under par.
6 under. Both are 6 under, yeah.
They're 6 under. Nikolai minus 140 to be top Dane. Rasmus minus 115 to be top Dane. So Nikolai's got a little bit of an edge there according to the book. And then Jacob Olsen is in there. He's 500 to 1. Just keep that in mind. Where are you going if you want to do a little fun head-to-head, Nikolai or Rasmus?
Yeah, fun market that our friends at DraftKings have kept up and have been updating throughout the week. I think that the wrong guy's favored here. I'm going to take Rasmus. I think back to, Nikolai made that Ryder Cup team a couple years ago in Italy. Rasmus hasn't been there. I think he really wants to be on there. He's got the inside track in my mind. But for me, there's a little bit of a weak spot for Nikolai. He's losing strokes on the greens, has not rolled in a ton of putts. Maybe that leaves a little bit of opportunity for him to cash in a few, and that means that his other game has been pretty stellar. But I think there's a more stable option with brother Rasmus as he tries to punch his ticket to Bethpage in a few months.
I told myself I was going to disagree with you because I really thought you were going to take Nikolai. I'm not going to disagree with you. Nikolai had the accolades earlier in the career, but I think that shifted to Rasmus. He has certainly shown more consistency in 2025 than Nikolai has. He's been all over the place. And so I think Rasmus, again, you're right, has more to prove. Maybe he has more to prove on that Ryder Cup. So, yeah, I'll go Rasmus. And again, it's better money, minus 115.
We came so close to having the brothers Højgaard play together in the final round in the same group. Would have made for a great head-to-head. We missed by one, so I think one's going to play with Harman, one's going to play with McIntyre. But they'll at least be able to keep an eye on each other from T-Buck's degree.
It'll happen one day. Good luck on your bets, everybody.